Previously, a few weeks ago, I did a spoiler-free review on Days Gone in 2023, and I previously said, if you are looking for something to sink upwards of 50 hours into, a great story and some fantastic acting, then in my opinion, it's better than God of War and The Last of Us. So yeah, check out Days Gone.
What?
And yeah, obviously I still stand by this, and I'm happy to die on this hill against The Last of Us and God of War fans. But in this video, I'll be talking full spoilers. So this is a flat warning. If you're interested in Days Gone and want a spoiler-free review, then go and check out that video. But for this video, don't say I didn't warn you.
I warned you, but you didn't listen! I gave you one last chance to walk away and you blew it!
It's a strange feeling when you put countless hours into a video game that's had you emotionally invested, following the journey of Deacon St. John as he survives in a post-apocalyptic world with his best mate, grieving after the death of his wife. The countless hordes, moments of fear inside caves, defending Lost Lake against Rippers and saving Lisa, but when the credits rolled and post the small wrap-up side missions after that, Days Gone felt like Firefly.
If someone ever tries to kill you, you try to kill him right back.
A fantastic series that, yes, can be wrapped up where it is now, but it is crying out for a sequel and a continuation of the story. In this video, I wanted to break down my thoughts of Days Gone as a whole, its spoiler content, and I think why it's my favourite PlayStation IP, and why I prefer it to God of War and The Last of Us.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
By far, the best thing Days Gone has going for it is its story, and for me personally, it's better than God of War and The Last of Us, and I'll get to that later in this video. But Days Gone felt like a great story that, yes, for the time being, is a standalone game that hints towards a sequel, which again, I'll get back to later. The core story starts off with wanting to ride north with Boozer, and then your bike is scrapped and Boozer is attacked, and then you need to upgrade your shitty bike and get some medical supplies for Boozer. And yeah, the start of the game is pretty slow for sure. Fun, but slow. But it wasn't a game I was rushing to return to until the mission where after a few hours we're introduced to a character called Lisa, and that's sort of where my perspective on the game changed. I immediately thought when we saw Lisa that great, we've got a young girl, and let me guess, Deacon St. John will get attached to protecting her, and I thought we were going down the road of The Last of Us, and that's where the game completely changed for me and it clicked, and that's when Days Gone isn't just a zombie-esque survival horror game. Yes, survival, sure, but I found myself racing towards my PC every time I got home from gym or work because I wanted to keep going with Days Gone.
Well, I guess I'll be going to my home now and sleep.
While on a glance, yes, it looks like a zombie game, but freakers are infected people, and being bitten doesn't turn you into a freaker, and freakers in this world as well are evolving and growing stronger. We've got standard freakers and huge brute freakers, which are basically like bodybuilders who have been infected. I'm looking at you, Joey Swole. There's also freakers who scream, alerting anything nearby, and there's a fairy werewolf style that is super fast, kinda tankish, but it's also about ambushing you. And while we have games like Last of Us and Left 4 Dead and all those style of games that have different systems of enemies with varying enemy types and all that sort of stuff like that, Days Gone doesn't throw 1001 different variants at you, but they also keep the standard freakers a real proper threat if you're not careful.
Hurry, how we do it?
You probably should ignore that.
Now, Days Gone starts out fairly straightforward with setting up Deacon and Boozer are drifter bounty hunters, and there's a settlement or two which they're surviving off and they're doing side jobs for them. But after we're introduced to Lisa, I started to get really involved and pay attention to the story, the lore, and the gameplay itself, and Days Gone changed for me. Lisa not only got me interested, but she worked real well as a plot device to move the story into different areas of the world and introduce us to new characters and provide a great emotional connection that, for me, carried over to other characters and missions. Sort of the reverse effect that I had with my Midnight Suns review. In that game, I said as soon as I disconnected with a character, I disconnected from the game completely. But here in Days Gone, once I got connected with a character, I connected with basically every character and the game in general. There's missions where you need to eavesdrop on Nero soldiers and scientists who are discussing and researching freakers, and yeah, it's a pretty boring sort of mission style, but these missions I found super interesting as they would give us more details about the freakers. Finding out that some freakers have been wearing and taking care of jewelry, and that freakers don't just feed on humans, but they also drink water, they hunt animals, and that got me really interested in following them in the story. And, well, speaking of story in Days Gone, obviously it's a slow start, but it's fantastic overall, but it's also a massive emotional roller coaster that had me sitting in my chair not knowing how to feel. One moment, you're trying to sneak into the Lost Lake camp to get medical supplies for Boozer, who's hallucinating and it's making him dangerous due to the attack he had with the Rippers at the start of the game. Then you find yourself doing missions to pull your weight so then Boozer can get his medical attention, and a couple of missions later, his arm is being removed, and that cutscene is, well, yeah. We're then continuously keeping an eye and saving Boozer with him drunkenly walking around getting Horde's attentions, and these moments in the game, while they're just missions that are fine and track down Boozer, they're nothing special, we get to learn more about the bond and promise that both Deacon and Boozer had made with each other before the Freakers had ruined the world.
The night your old lady was killed. What did I say to you? What did I say to you, huh? I found you halfway through a case of whiskey. You were gonna drink yourself to death. What did I say to you?
You grabbed a bottle, and you chugged it. It was a lot of goddamn whiskey. And you told me that if I was gonna drink myself to death, you'd be right there with me. That's what brothers do.
There were 3 missions in this game that were so damn close together, they put me on this giant emotional roller coaster that physically just had me sitting there not knowing how to feel. Boozer disappears and is found tracking down some Rippers who are hunting dogs. Not wolves, dogs. And you find Boozer with a Labrador who's been attacked and you put the dog out of its misery. Now, me being a dude who loves and has 2 dogs, and yes, it's a video game, yes, it's not real, still though, it was a bit rough, and the acting here in the scene is brilliant, so it makes it feel more real, damn it. And from here, you and Boozer are pissed and you kill a heap of Rippers, so because how emotional that scene is, I'm just raging as I'm taking down these Rippers. Then, a couple of small missions later, you hear about a puppy that you want to save and give to Boozer, and obviously, following on from putting down a dog and saving one, you better believe I was invested in saving a puppy.
So you see, the puppy was like industry, in that they were both lost in the woods.
And a puppy hiding behind a door while a freaker is scratching at it, and man, I hate seeing dogs in danger and that stuff, but this puppy had to have a happy ending, and the puppy survives the whole game, the dude's cute as fuck.
But wait! There's more!
And everything goes well, but then we're given a mission where we sneak into the Ripper territory and we mercy kill someone who's been strung up for food for a freaker horde, and she has broken legs so she's not going anywhere. So here I am killing Rippers one moment, then hiding from hordes and saving puppies, to fucking mercy killing someone, and it's damn rough. Brilliant levels of acting and direction, but it's just brutal. Days Gone legit had me riding the highs and dropping lows so consistently. The acting on screen from everyone involved in Days Gone is just beautiful. Just look at the detail on screen and the dynamic here and just tell me I'm wrong.
I let him go. Schizo. Ain't no way he was getting a fair trial. You let him go.
All the characters in the game too have direction and purpose. I thought it would be babysitting Lisa when we're first introduced to her, a bit like how we need to work with Ellie in The Last of Us, for it to turn into Lisa wanting to be a sole survivor rather than living and surviving in a camp, and then she's captured by Rippers, so then we as Deacon save her, and then she joins the Rippers. And then the double-crossing slimebag character of Schizo starts off easy enough with him being the head of security for the Lost Lake encampment, before we're chasing him down at the end of the game after he's killed Iron Mike and is defending the religious, insane military leader. But by far the biggest and also somewhat little bit predictable twist in the main story is with Deacon trying to find out what happened to his wife. We start off thinking she's dead, we visit her grave, we're having flashbacks before finding O'Brien, the hazmat scientist who helped save Sarah during the outbreak. We help O'Brien, which yes falls back to the eavesdropping missions, and then yeah, we find she's dead. We've got an emotional, wrenching mission where we clear out the church that you get married in, we set the church on fire, and we basically move on with our life. before we're told she might not really be dead, and that we need to go into a new and dangerous zone. We're introduced to a military faction where one of the characters, Captain Curry, is wearing the ring that you gave Sarah the last time you saw her. And yeah, after a little bit we find that, yeah, Sarah's alive and she's working with the religious cult military faction trying to cure the Freakers. Sarah's evolution as a character as well after we find her is alive is really cool. We see Sarah in flashbacks, we have dates with her, we teach her how to ride a motorbike, we propose to her, we get married to her. Basically flashbacks that show us how Deacon and Sarah fell in love. All while Deacon St. John is generally the same character who's a rough around the edges ex-military biker with a heart of gold, and we see Sarah as a loving, caring person, and shit, she gets stabbed trying to help a kid when everything goes to hell. But when we see her alive at the end of the game, she's a rougher and tougher version of herself. She's determined to cure the Freakers and find out what happened. She's giving you orders to go and pick up items and supplies from around the world, and she's a bit cold to you. Sure, she can't believe that you're alive, but she's also not letting herself be vulnerable to, or let the religious military faction know of your previous life together.
I got it. See, I told you. See? Like I said, I got this.
From here, you've got to help her with her research and find out what happened to the source of the virus, how it all came to be. We have a great mission in the old research facility that she used to work at, and the mission ends with Deacon and Sarah holding up in a cabin in the middle of a snowstorm, and they can finally be together without revealing their personal connection to anyone else. Following this, we try to get her to escape with you. Before you know it, Schizo's come in, he screwed everything up, and we learn that not everyone in this religious cult is a dick. I'm looking at you, Captain Curry. And the last couple of hours ends with a siege attack on the military island base to save Sarah. By far though, the best and most horrifying moments of Days Gone, for me, are these small missions where you need to gather resources to make an assault at Wizard Island. And if you know, you know, but it's the sawmill. Earlier in the game, Ricky shows us the sawmill horde, the largest horde in the game, and we need to clear it, all 300 Freakers.
No! God!
Now, I've never in my life felt so much fear and anxiety from playing a video game before, and I failed it multiple times, and thankfully the game does let you skip the mission if you fail it 3 times, but no, I had to do this. During the start of Act 3, we're basically given a napalm Molotov to fight off against hordes, and the horde encounters we have in that point in the story are set up around explosives and funnel points and general areas for you to slip away from the horde to force them into certain areas and such. But the sawmill area felt like a damn maze where my brain just couldn't figure out what to do, and I just couldn't get into the zone and found myself getting stuck in a corner and ruined against a swarming Freakers horde.
What the hell? No, 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 no!
Over an hour, freaking out to myself, trying different tactics and ideas, and I finally got it done. And I showed this mission to Mrs. Duty on YouTube and showed her how many Freakers I just took out, only to find that there are so many other areas and ways to attack this horde, it completely just broke my mind. There are some things though that while I wouldn't say I wasn't a fan of, it did feel off with Days Gone. Now, the game is long and that's not a problem, but for some story points, they're really quick. For example, we hear a lot about Carlos, the leader of the Rippers, and how the Rippers have a truce with Lost Lake. We're then introduced to Carlos, though we find out this character was previously called Jesse, who is a member of the Mongols Motorcycle Club alongside Deacon and Boozer. A couple of missions after we're introduced to Carlos, or Jesse, we've killed him and, well, that's it. And the same thing with a new recruit to the military faction in Act 3 with Wade. We're introduced to Wade, we save his life from some raiders, and he loses an ear. So then he's put on guard duty, he's an ex-junkie, and he accidentally kills the camp's doctor, and it's the only real sort of doctor in the game. And then we're tasked with finding him, bringing him in where he'll be hung for going AWOL and killing the camp's doctor. Great story, yes. Emotionally great acting in the cutscene, yes. But again, like Jesse or Carlos, it feels like it's a plot point that could have been dragged out for a bit longer. They're great stories with good wrap-ups to their character arcs, but they're also really quick stories. It could have been cool that if we had a bit of a prequel to the start of the game before we're set in this post-apocalyptic world, we see the MC, we see Jesse, so then when he's shown to us as the leader of the Rippers, it's more of a whoa moment for us as the players, rather than us going, okay, Deacon and Boozer know who this is, but we as the player don't. The third act, or more precisely after we're racing back from Wizard Island back to Lost Lake to save the settlement from Schizo and his military forces, is a great setting, and there is a sense of urgency to it and such. But the final setup missions before the last mission, before the siege, is kind of rushed. Yes, it's a long game, but the last portion of the game is just very quick side missions. Schizo and his military force also attack Copeland's camp, and they don't go after the workforce camp at the Hot Springs, and after the first, or you're into the second act, that settlement is basically forgotten about, and there's no real reason to go back there or worry about them. We're supposed to get resources to form an assault attack at Wizard Island, and this part of the game is just clear a horde so Boozer and Ricky can come in and gain the relevant resources, and rinse and repeat. There are some small side missions which are basically clear out a small military camp setup, and you kinda need to be careful as there are hordes nearby. But while the hordes are horrifying, this portion of the game forces you to face off against them, and I also did end up using a horde against the military to basically clear the camp for me. But while the military attacked both Copeland and Lost Lake, only Lost Lake gets involved in the Act 3 siege against the military at Wizard Island, where it could have been cool to have Copeland and Hot Springs join in, though the siege is still really cool. The siege, which is yes basically about taking out the military before they attack again and saving Sarah, is all emotionally driven, and it's because, well, Sarah's in danger from the religious cult leader Colonel Garrett, but Schizo is baiting you and enraging you while you're trying to save Sarah, saying that she's dead and the Colonel cracked her head open like an egg, and that he didn't mean to kill Iron Mike. Now, while we have a little boss fight, it's nothing like, say, taking on a horde or a boss enemy where there is a health bar, but it's a small boss fight, and it is satisfying, and I kind of found it satisfying too. It's more of a sneaking style one. But the conclusion with Colonel Garrett is a bit lackluster, and it's a cutscene. Again, while it's good in regards to the acting and production quality, it could have been cool if we'd actually done something to Colonel Garrett ourselves. Speaking of lackluster, there is a rough scene when arriving at the siege at Wizard Island where you and Boozer need to ram the gate with an explosive truck, and Boozer sacrifices himself so you can save Sarah. Only for Boozer to survive, and, well, yeah, Boozer is a great character, and it kinda worked, and it kinda didn't work. Like, it's a great emotional scene, and I gotta stop being a little bitch when it comes to these game scenes, but it sets you up, or it set me up to go loud and be brutal in combat, for the siege to end and Boozer to be alive. But going back to an earlier statement, yes, I much prefer Days Gone to The Last of Us and God of War. I personally found that God of War and The Last of Us are the video game equivalent of James Cameron's Avatar, where everyone is saying how good it was, how perfect it is, how fantastic everything is. And, well, this comment by @PeteBaldwin said it best on my spoiler-free review, is that the difference with God of War is it was promoted and advertised as the best game ever, and it's not even close, where Days Gone has the opposite experience. Reviewers gave it a mediocre score, and honestly, I have no idea how, if someone experienced the whole game, how they were giving it these scores. Yes, while it doesn't have the instant story and action moments of The Last of Us, and it is generic for, say, the first 3 hours or so, Days Gone is a game that grows with the players, where you connect with so many characters, and before you know it, you'll be tweeting #DaysGone2 and asking for a Days Gone TV series like we've got with The Last of Us, the upcoming God of War show, and that Uncharted film.
Nice job, Spider-Man!
After my spoiler-free review on Days Gone, a mate of mine was a bit interested and finally took my advice and decided to download it and check it out for himself, and he's loving it. After finishing the campaign, I'm paying attention to where he is in the story. Has he seen the sawmill horde? Has he moved to Wizard Island and the fanatic military faction? Has he taken out Jesse/Carlos, the leader of the Rippers? Has he gone on the emotional rollercoaster that is the story of Days Gone? And I'm sort of reliving the game through him and getting his reactions to the events as they play out. For instance, I was watching him do the dam mission where Deacon and Ricky need to restart the turbines, and for the entire time he thought there was a horde under the dam, where I knew exactly how the mission was going and how it was going to play out. He was showing me and talking to me about how his Deacon would just go hardcore through the Ripper camp to save Lisa, where my Deacon was quiet and cunning. But we gotta talk about the side mission cliffhanger endings that set up and tease a bit of Days Gone 2, and honestly, when you finish the main story and you get to do these wrap-up side missions, I found myself sitting here wondering how more people aren't asking for Days Gone 2. We get 4 side missions after Sarah has been saved and taken back to Lost Lake, and they sort of wrap up some loose ends. We find that Lisa, who saved you from the torture at the Ripper camp with Jesse/Carlos, escaped and is basically a younger version of Deka, being a roaming drifter bounty hunter, but being a previous Ripper, she has Ripper markings all over her. And Deacon, being a bit like the leader of Lost Lake following the death of Iron Mike, introduces her to the relevant people of the camp, but continuously reiterates that she can leave whenever she wants, she doesn't have to stay. We have a small funeral for Iron Mike, which is just a simple cutscene, and all these missions are really just simple cutscenes, but it provides some closure for Iron Mike and gives us his hand cannon pistol as a usable weapon, which is dope, but I would have liked to use this weapon on the Act 3 siege at Wizard Island. We get a small Deacon side mission where you ride back to Wizard Island to retrieve your rings, as the military faction were melting down personal items like rings and necklaces for ammo for their guns. And also, riding back to Wizard Island after the credits roll can be interesting if you haven't cleared Freakiness, because there's hordes everywhere now, as well as random special freakers just roaming around. But the main one is meeting up with O'Brien, the hazmat neuroscientist who previously had you eavesdropping on fellow neuroscientists and helped you find Sarah and tried to help you escape, but, you know, Schizo ruins it. But O'Brien takes off his hazmat suit to show us that he's turning into a freaker himself somehow, and warns Deacon that he can't stop what's coming, and we get a glimpse that he's holding off and fighting back the freaker virus, what's urging him to do. Basically, he's trying to hold himself back from trying to jump on him. O'Brien then proceeds to do some supernatural jumping onto a helicopter that takes him off, and, well, that's it. Days Gone is done, and by the looks of it, we're not getting a sequel, at least not anytime soon.
What? Why? Why?
After 36 hours of gameplay, the insane roller coaster, the damn sawmill horde, saving Sarah, killing Schizo for this teaser, knowing that we most likely will never get a sequel to this fantastic story, is something that I simply just can't understand. But there is one major thing that I wanted to mention, and I forgot to mention it in my spoiler-free review, and it's Nathan Whitehead's soundtrack. Now, when you think of video game theme songs, Bear McCreary's God of War theme has a deep and powerful tone to it, setting up the character of Kratos. Gustavo Santaola's Last of Us theme is this simple acoustic guitar setting that works really well with the overgrown world of The Last of Us, and its simplistic nature is quite catchy. When you think of post-apocalyptic open-world survival game, you wouldn't think of Whitehead's Days Gone theme. Its tone works great with the story of Deacon, and, well, not to sound like a music dick, but it's got these hints of sadness and somber tones to it, where the last 40 seconds have this creepy, eerie vibe to it with a bit of punch that works well for Rippers, Raiders, and Freakers. The soundtrack too has some songs in it as well, a bit like how, say, Red Dead Redemption 2 had songs to it, and I think it works really damn well, and I'm now looking for the Mondo vinyl record in stock anywhere because, damn. Days Gone is honestly one of the most beautiful games, both graphically and story-wise. The gameplay is simple, but when a horde arrives, or when you're forced into taking out one to progress the story, Sawmill, you're happy that it's simple because there's so much you need to juggle at one time. Complicated gameplay would make your hands crumble. The traversal on Deacon's bike is great, and as a guy who's wanting to get a motorbike in the next year or so, I'd be lying if I said I haven't looked at a way to make Deacon's bike in some way. I did notice though in cutscenes here and there that he'd have a kickstart bike, but in the gameplay it's just a button start. Interesting.
Coming back to help us.
I'm just sorry I was too late.
You weren't. We'll stop him.
But Days Gone has left a significant impression on me. Spider-Man is and was a fantastic title, but I wouldn't really say it's a PlayStation game, because, well, it's a comic book character, if that makes sense. God of War is a fantastic game, and I really enjoyed God of War 1 to 4, and I've not played Ragnarok yet.
But they'll have to wait for another night.
Last of Us, though,
This is not my kind of guy.
You see, me and a buddy of mine spent a long amount of time in one night playing The Last of Us, but for whatever reason, we just couldn't click with the game. The gameplay worked, it had a story, but it just wasn't clicking, and the game has clickers for fuck's sake. But Days Gone though, it worked on so many levels for me, and if you've played the game, you might have had the same experience or a completely different experience. So if you have, please fire it down in the comments below. Even though the story is done, there's no more surprises with Sarah and Deacon, and their story does look like it's over. Days Gone will have a permanent place on my PC. When I'm looking for some mindless games while hanging out with some friends or streaming or looking for a palate cleanser between games, clearing out hordes of freakers is a great way to completely blank your mind if something is bothering you. Days Gone will forever be one of, if not the best PlayStation title, in my opinion.
Hey, O'Brien, you got any idea what took out your men? Am I walking into a horde here?
No idea. We never heard back from them. Remember, if you find them, we got people here who'd be grateful.
Grateful. Yeah, that changes everything. Yeah, I got it. Good. I'll take care of it. Out.